welcome back to Winter 89 Colors. My name is Melissa and I am here today to introduce to you something that is long overdue on this channel, and that is dun, 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 yes, that's right. I've finally jumped on this bandwagon and we are gonna give these Woomer pencils a shot. You've probably already seen these on many of your favorite colorist channels. Yes, I'm late to the party, but guess what? Better late than never. And every pencil is different in everyone's hand, so hopefully I can contribute something new to this interesting little brand that I've heard a little bit about. So, as you can see, I have not yet opened it. And there it is. Plastic off. So, let's have a look. I'm going to flip these over. Or actually, I don't have to flip them over because this thing slides right off. So let's slide it off. Slide it off. There we go. And it's got a little swatch of all the pencils on the back. Based on this swatch, everything looks very, very dark, but of course, I'm sure it will look different once we actually pull these colors out and look at them. Yeah, easy to blend, 3.8 millimeter soft core, break-resistant lead, wide range of colors, richly saturated pigments. Okay, this color swatch is only for reference, as we know. So, there are 72 of these bad boys. Let's open her up and have a look. Okay. Lovely, bright looking. Not sure how I feel about the order they've put them in, but we can always change that later. Okay, and then we've got our earthy tones here. So far, kind of a nice look. We've got a few grays, which is good. An okay amount of browns. Good amount of greens, it looks like. Got a nice earth green there. Some purples, which is good. Quite a few yellow tones. Not much in the way of oranges, which is unsurprising. A couple of looking peachy tones, tan tones. We've got 2 pinks here and 2 pinks here, which look very, very similar. I love this really light pink here. You always want some pastels, and this is a nice light blue here too. And then some darker ones. You want some nice dark blues. I'm not sure if there's a dark enough blue here for my loving, but we'll have you know, the swatches will tell, won't they? So let me grab just a scrap piece of paper here just to test one out on. Let's grab a purple. I said, there we go. And let's grab this pink here. So we've got rose red and royal purple. From what I understand, these are the light fast ratings. Apparently these are supposed to be very light fast according to the email that they sent me about them. Okay. They are soft. Waxy, chonky even. They have a very particular smell. Okay. They remind me kind of the Artex pencils. They also kind of remind me of the Amazon Basics pencils, which I had a long time ago. I remember disliking the Amazon Basics pencils, but then I was not as familiar with pencils as I am now. So I'd once again be willing to try them again at this point. But anyways, these are going to be interesting. I'm going to have to use them in a page to know for sure, but first I'm going to swatch them out. So I will do that probably silently, and maybe I'll talk over the top using a voiceover so that I'm not getting distracted. All right, let's go and have a little swatch. All right, so I've sped this up for you, and I figured that maybe I should talk a little bit while this is happening. So let's talk about first impressions. So the first thing that I noticed is that it does come in this lovely orange tin. It is steel, and it was packaged so well that there was no problems, no dents in the tin. Everything turned out lovely. So the packaging itself, it's in a couple of different layers here in these plastic trays. I probably will eventually be getting another pencil case for them, as this isn't ideal, but at least for shipping, it's a pretty good and solid way to get the pencils to you safely. Now, of course, my first thing is that these have been all over the place. These pencils, I've seen them on other people's channels, and I have been watching a review or two here and there, and what I noticed is that they seemed too good to be true. Because, not only because of all of the people that were raving about them, but because I pulled them out of the box, and as soon as I looked at them, they were so lovely. They reminded me a little bit of Artex pencils, and that's a little bit what I was worried about, because Artex pencils and I, we have a complicated relationship. So I wanted to know if they were going to be any different than that, and I think that they were. So the first thing I noticed is that they have a dipped end, which is really nice, makes it look really professional. They do look very pretty. They've got this nice gold writing. Now, unfortunately, on some of the colors, the gold writing does make it just a little bit more difficult to see, but I don't think that that's really a big problem. I think that that's something that can be worked around. There are a couple of the pencils where the gold writing is a little bit skewed, not exactly perfect, but that is okay. It's still legible in most cases, and it's not on everyone, it's just on a few of them. The other thing that they wanted me to talk about for sure, they really stressed, is their light fastness. Now, of course, as a colorist, this is not a really big issue for me, as most of my colorings are going to remain out of the sunlight and away from everything else. They're going to be tucked away in a book. However, it's nice to know that many of these pencils are, in fact, very light fast, and they have the light fast rating right on the pencil as well as on the swatch chart. So the swatch chart you see I'm doing right now is the one that comes with the pencils. This is the one that is on the back of the panel that you slide off of the tin. And so at first, when I was doing these swatches, I was a little bit hesitant. I didn't really know how this was going because, of course, the cardboard has a different tone to it and behaves differently than, of course, other paper might. It has almost a bit of a waxy quality, so it was really hard for me to tell exactly how well this was going. But then I eventually did switch over and do it on a more normal printer paper, but at least that has a little bit more tooth, and that gave me an even better idea as to how the pencils performed, and I was able to make a much better judgment at that point. Now, as far as the color variety goes, I'm pretty happy with that as well. I think that they did a good job for only a 72 set, attempting to create a reasonable amount of colors. We've got lots of blues, a few grays, not too many, but I think there's enough. A few browns, a good amount of greens, some reds, some purples, some pinks. Again, I'm not sure if I love the green selection. They're very bright in a lot of cases. I could have used a few more earthy greens, but that is totally okay. Again, that kind of depends on what kind of work that you're doing with them. So I know that this tin was not catered to specifically me and my needs, so you have to make do, especially in a smaller set like this. So overall, with my first impression, I was pretty happy, pleasantly surprised. Now, I did have some concerns about exactly how they were going to lay down, even after the swatching. It was kind of hard to say how they were going to blend, how they were going to mix together, because they were very, very waxy. And I was suspecting that we were going to be getting a lot of wax bloom, which can sometimes cause it to be very difficult to layer or to blend together. And I wasn't sure exactly which of these two was going to be the bigger problem, or which one I was going to be able to use more with them. I wasn't sure how it was going to blend with other pencils, that kind of thing. But again, that's almost impossible to tell from just a swatch. So I'm going to leave it here for a minute, put you to some music, and I'll be back in a little bit with some more information. All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk about, now that we've moved on to the second set of swatches that I'm using here, is the fact that I decided to reorder the pencils. I was not super happy with the order that they had put them in. Not that they had done it in a wrong way. It's just my personal style prefers this particular order. So I did that off of screen. I reordered them all, and made sure that I put them in an order that made sense to my brain given this set. I don't think I've ever put a set in order where the purples come first before, but for some reason, just the way that these colors worked out, that kind of worked for me. So that's what we ended up with, was purples and pinks first. Anyways, the next point that I wanted to make was sharpening. Sharpening can be a really big problem for me. I hate when I get a pencil and I end up having to waste a bunch of the pencil on constantly sharpening it because it keeps breaking or the wood keeps shattering, things like that. So I did test these pencils with both my Doll 133, which will sharpen almost anything perfectly. It doesn't matter what pencil it is. Of course, that worked fine. I tried my big electric 10 wind sharpener, and that went really, really well too. It got nice long points, and the core is so thick that I had very little breakage, even after making such a long pointed sharpen. So that's good. And then the real test was using a manual straight blade sharpener, which of course is the one that can cause the most problems if your wood is of low quality or if your core is too brittle. And I found that I had no problems with any of these things. Any of the sharpeners that I used, they really excelled, and I was able to get exactly the point that I wanted. They held well. The cores were not prone to breakage, it didn't seem, and the wood really sharpened quite cleanly, which is a big deal to me. I really enjoy when the pencils are a joy to sharpen and look aesthetically pleasing once you put them back in the case, and of course perform to the way that you wanted. I will say too that I very much enjoy that they have a fair amount of light colors, like some pastels and other such light colors in the set. For example, Caribbean Sea WP205 is a really, really pretty blue that I don't see in a lot of pencil sets. Prismacolor, of course, has one that's very similar. Artex does as well. But on a lot of other sets, I don't see one that's quite that light. And a really nice light blue can really make or break a lot of shading, highlighting, and other such bits and pieces to your artwork, whether it's coloring or other artwork. It's really nice to have that nice light pastel blue, as well as a couple of peaches, light pinks, uh, and a variety of very light yellows. I'm also glad that this set doesn't have too many yellows. I find that some sets that I get are just, they're so yellow. There's so many yellows, and I myself don't need that many yellows. I need, an ochre, a dandelion, a lemon, and then like a cream color, and that's enough. I can pretty much make everything else work. So I'm so glad that they didn't go overboard on the yellows, especially for a 72 set, which already does not have enough room for colors as it is. So again, I think that they did a really good job color balancing these, and I was really happy to work with them. So again, I'll leave you and I'll pick you up again when we get to coloring the actual picture. All right. So I'm starting off here by showing you the sharpness levels that I'm getting from the pencils, as I had mentioned earlier. I just wanted to do a little demo to show you that, again, you can sharpen them to whatever point you need using whatever sharpener you need, and they'll do the trick. So I just wanted to point that out before we got working on the picture. So the picture that we're working on is quite obviously in Rita Berman's Mein Reis durch Europa. Pardon my pronunciation. I decided to do this little mini vignette, and I chose this little fruit basket because I figured that would give us a nice variety of different colors, give us a lot of opportunities to get those contrasts, those layers, really give us a demonstration of what these pencils are capable of on a decent paper. So I quickly noticed that my fears were assuaged and that they did layer on themselves quite nicely. They did take a little bit more pressure to get them burnished, I noticed, but I don't think that that's really necessarily an issue. I think very much like a polychromos or something like that, it just takes that little bit of oomph, but that just means that they layer, and you have a little bit more room to work with in that. It's not insta-burnished. So I ended up going with a variety of different colors, trying to exaggerate the colors on these fruits just to make sure that we got a good variety in and that you got a real sense for how pigmented they were, because boy oh boy, these pencils were in fact quite pigmented, and I was very happy with how little pressure it took to get that pigment down. I wasn't sure what all of these fruits were in this basket, so I did end up guessing at a few points, and I'm sure you'll be able to see that, but I don't think that that's the point. I don't think it really matters. Right now, what we're concerned about is these pencils. And given that this is just a little vignette, I wasn't too emotionally attached to it, even though it is technically part of my Rita Berman series. I thought that you guys would forgive me if I cut away from that to use one of these for this particular demonstration. But yeah, if you were to use these pencils and you were going to be using them outside of a coloring book, Their light fastness is a really big plus. Most of the colors are like a 4-star or more, which is really, really great, just keeping them nice and guaranteed that they're going to last in your artwork later. All right, so I'll leave you to it for a little bit, and I'll see you at the end for my final thoughts. I wanted to point out just before we get to the end here was that I did also use these pencils to color on an Amazon book. I went over top of alcohol markers because I wanted to see how they would perform in that capacity, and I thought they did really well there as well. If you want to see me do a video of something like that with these pencils, do make sure to let me know. Alrighty, so here we are at the end of this video. I wanted to thank you for coming here and spending some time with me today. I don't really like to use the word review when I'm testing out a product like this because that sounds very contrived. I really genuinely was excited when they sent me the offer to have a look at these pencils because I've been curious about them myself. So I was really glad to have the opportunity to show them to you, and if I didn't like them, I wouldn't be actually doing this. So I'm so glad that you've had a chance to come and join me and have a look at these pencils. And if you want more information about how you can get some discounts and things like that, I will have all those links down below in the description box so that you can check out both the website and where you can find them on Amazon and any discount codes that I have. So make sure to check that out. If you want to see more content about these pencils, see me coloring more, see different types of paper, then definitely let me know, and I will be sure to put that on my list of things that maybe I can try to fit into videos in the future. Alrighty, so that's all I have for me today. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for being with me for all the videos that you've seen lately. I really appreciate you. I hope you are enjoying your day and happy coloring. Toodaloo!